Like, I personally... Hi guys! So, this is my 5th attempt at filming this godforsaken video. So, you're just gonna have to deal with the sound quality because so far I have accidentally deleted footage. My lighting has been wrong for the entire video. The camera's been off angle. My mic died mid-filming and I didn't realize it. And as of like 30 seconds ago, I think my actual mic set is dead. I think it's kicked the bucket. I've put it through the ringer the past couple of months and it wasn't exactly the most expensive thing. But yeah, you guys are just gonna have to deal with it. But it'll be fine, right? Because we're all friends. So it's fine. Anyway, Happy New Year! This is our first video of 2025 and I am so excited because I am gonna try and do my best to post a little bit more consistently. As of right now, I will be posting this like 12 hours after I film it. Which is not normal for me. I tried to get ahead of the game. I did. My first attempt at this video, I think, was maybe like 3 weeks ago. It was before Christmas. So, you know, but it's fine. We're okay. It's all chill. We're good. And we are back to the fandom talk. So I'm going to keep the majority of everything else to a minimum. If you want to see me ramble about some of our other fandoms that we have fun with, you can go and follow my TikTok and you can see some of that. But today, we are back on our book topics and we are going to talk about Finding 13 and Keeping 13 by Chloe Walsh. They are the first 2 installments of the Boys of Tallman series. And I was held at gunpoint to read these by my best friend this year. But, you know, I appreciate her. And I appreciate the extreme measures she went to make sure that these were introduced to me. Because let me just say right off the bat, okay, I am well aware that people who read these books either absolutely love them or absolutely hate them. I absolutely loved them. Now, I can say, right, that, you know, maybe you don't love them that much because you finished the second one in August and then you never said anything and you haven't touched any of the other books. Slow down. These are emotional. And for someone who runs from emotions, that's not always gonna be my thing, okay? I wasn't prepared for these to hurt as much as they did. I was like, my best friend had prepared me because she was like, these are really rough. Like, just so you know. Like, it's gonna be really rough. So you gotta just hang in there. I didn't know it was gonna be that bad. Ugh. Okay. Anyway. Yeah. So, in all seriousness, I am going to touch, obviously, on the topics that are talked about oh so much in this book. Physical abuse, emotional abuse, any sort of, you know, heavy anxiety, panic attacks. We'll mention, like, some of the mental health sides, obviously, you know, the depression, a little bit of drug addiction. And then I'm also going to, once we get to the topic of the second book, I will bring up a little bit how they handle the topic of essay. So, if for some reason any of that makes you uncomfortable, any of that triggers you, I totally understand. You're fine. Go watch another video that's more lighthearted than probably what this is going to be. But yeah, so it's okay if you can't watch this one. I love you anyway. Alrighty, so let's talk about the main idea, right? So this is first grievance. These are categorized as YA. I don't think they should be. I could be wrong, but I always only find them in the YA section of the bookstore. I've never looked in a library, so I don't know. But I only ever find them in the YA section of the bookstore. These are so insanely graphic and in detail. And I'm not talking graphic just in, like, the spicy scenes. Because there are some. And they were, like, very detailed, considering that these are supposed to be like 17, 18, 19-year-olds. So that was interesting. I feel like maybe these should be categorized as new adult, because that feels more like what they're written for. It feels like they're written for older, maybe 20-somethings, but they are written about young adults. So like at the very start of the book, our main character, Shannon Lynch, I think she's 15. I want to say she turned 16 like a couple chapters into the book. Let's talk about her for a second. Okay. Sweet Shannon. Bless her heart. So Shannon Lynch is the only daughter of the Lynch family. She has 5 brothers, 2 older and 3 younger. We don't see a whole lot about the oldest brother because he disappeared. He ran away. He left before the series started. He does make a reappearance, obviously, as we know, but just giving y'all a refresher because I needed one. Okay. So he ran off, and then he showed back up in the second book. I have a lot of thoughts and feelings on him, but we'll get to that when we talk about Keeping 13. So this one, really one of the very, very, very first things we learn about Shannon is that she's a victim of quite literally everything you could possibly think of. Like I mentioned earlier, she deals with a lot of physical abuse at the hand of her father. As a result, that's obviously given her a very severe anxiety disorder and just lots of... She has more extreme mental health issues. Obviously, the mother is in the picture, but she's, for a first little while, she's really just a ghost. Like, we don't see much of her. We don't hear a ton from her. Obviously, the mother suffers the abuse too, but it is mainly transfixed onto Shannon and her older brother Joey and their mother. So, we open with Shannon having a panic attack in the bathroom at her house before she's supposed to leave for her first day at Tolman College, which is her new high school, or whatever they call it in Ireland. I know everybody has like fancy names for high school. It's just high school. I'm in America. I'm sorry. I don't remember. I don't know why it's called college. And that's why I'm 19 and making YouTube videos. So, Shannon has dealt with very, very, very severe bullying pretty much her whole entire life. She has 2 childhood friends, Claire and Lizzie. I love Claire so much. I have mixed feelings on Lizzie, but I'm going to kind of hold out for the rest of the series just to see if maybe that changes. And hopefully she's not, you know. I know a little bit about it, right? Because when you're on social media so much and you're so invested in these forms of media and these things that you're talking about and these things you're invested in, like, it's hard not to find like little spoilers and things. So I know something that Lizzie deals with, and maybe just anger is her go-to emotion. That's so eldest daughter coded. Let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about the representation of eldest daughters in literature. I'm talking Nesta Archeron from A Court of Thorns and Roses. Dude. Okay, this was a tangent I went on in one of the other 5 million takes of this video. These books especially kind of brought it to my attention, but I feel like handling like mental illnesses in such an upfront and forward way as to put them in these fictional stories that we're just ingesting as almost a way to like force feed us to understand, that is so cool. And I think it's valid and it makes sense and I eat it up every time. Why? Because I love to see things that I've been through represented. You know, even in today's age, I feel like there are some things where it's just like the mental illness is just such a taboo topic, or like it has to make the book so depressed and it has to be a thing. Okay. Are these books depressing? Yeah. Does it make them bad? No. Does it mean every book that has to handle the topic of a character having a mental illness be depressing? No. Oh, do you know what I mean? Like, I find comfort in writing characters that deal with things like that. There are some of you probably watching this that have read one or multiple of my books, and I kind of find that as a comfort thing. I sort of write those as a way to help myself with what I have dealt with, and I think it's interesting to always see different people's interpretations. Anyway, so the beginning of the first book, genuinely, like, the only word that I can think of when I think of Shannon is a victim. Like, she has just been absolutely put through the ringer. And she's so precious, and you can tell just from the beginning that she's so full of life, but she doesn't feel the need, like, she doesn't feel like she's allowed to express it. And it's absolutely heartbreaking, because she's been placed in this motherly role over, you know, her younger brothers, and she has all of these other things that she has to deal with, and all of these worries and this and that, and it's just a whole mess. And so rating her character was really, really hard, because the other thing too was the way that this writing is done makes it feel so personal. Like, it makes it feel like you're right there in it, which is why it took me so long to read these. Like, I started these in like February of last year, maybe later, but still, like, it was early last year that I first cracked this one open. And it just took me so long to get through it, because I'd read a chapter, I'd read 2 chapters, and I'm like, like, I could feel like my chest was heavy. And it was the craziest thing, because like when you're in it, when you're reading these scenes, when Shannon's having a panic attack, you could feel it. And it was the weirdest thing. Like, I haven't had a book make me feel like that in so long. It was crazy. It was crazy. And that sort of thing automatically shoots books super way up on how much I love them. Because if your writing is so personal that I feel like I'm literally standing there with the characters, hello? Like, where have you been my whole life? So that was one thing that I really loved about Walsh's writing style, was just the way that it felt very personal, and it always felt like you were really connected to the characters. It was very immersive, kind of no matter what. Let's talk about Johnny. Let me paint you a picture, okay? I think canonically he's like, what, 6'1", 6'2"? Maybe he's just 6 foot. Either way, I know there's a 6 in front of it. Brunette, Irish, rugby star. Need I say more? Need I say more? No. No. Because that is perfect. And literally, oh my gosh, dude, everything that he says and does is just so ideal. Like, yeah, there were a few instances where you were reminded, like, okay, that's a hormonal boy. Like, he would do things where it's just like, dude, sit down, take a breath, you're fine. Okay? But, alright. Diversion. What is this? Number, like, 7? On my very, very, very first video, I spent a good amount of time, bagging on a certain beloved fictional character. I'm not gonna name names, okay? Do I have personal beef with fictional realtors? Maybe. Arrest me? I don't know. Okay? But I also allowed myself about 10 minutes of that video to talk about Binding 13, because I'd only finished the first one at the time. And I feel like Johnny very well encapsulates the idea of, like, protective over possessive. And you have to be able to protect the girl's independence. I don't know if any of that just made sense. But Johnny had this thing where even though for a very, very, very long time he didn't know the truth about what was happening to Shannon, he always had a way of bringing out who she really was, who she should have had the opportunity to be all along, and letting that grow and blossom and speak for itself, but he was always right there in case she needed him. You know, and I know that I bagged on, like, the physical threats with, you know, Mr. Realtor, CEO, and I was like, oh, well, like, that's so gross to, like, threaten to blah, 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 you know, whatever. First of all, I should have highlighted some of these quotes, but I didn't, and I should have. Anytime Johnny threatened a man for doing something with Shannon, trying to whatever, that was why. Was because they had approached her, or they had made her uncomfortable, or they had done something to her. He gave her the chance and the space. When he realized, obviously, that there was not a threat per se, but that maybe she was more fragile, or that, you know, he just didn't trust any of his teammates with her, there was that, like, okay, none of you are allowed to speak to her. Don't touch her. There was that sort of thing for a little while. But even that, I think, was done with a good heart. I feel like since the moment he saw her, he felt the need to be there and protect her and allow her to be her own person, but to always make sure that she was safe, which I loved. Loved so much. Oh my gosh, their dynamic. It was just so precious, and it was so sweet, and it was such a romantic way of putting that, like, young love that's also laced with tragedy. That was just so, yeah. I loved it. I think that's part of the reason why I also have a hesitation to go ahead and just start the other books, the rest of the series. There's 5 books in total, and I've only read the first 2. I've only read Johnny and Shannon's books. And I think part of the reason why is because I'm, like, scared that these other couples aren't going to measure up to them. Because I was reading about these two while I was going through a rough time emotionally. And it just brought me so much comfort to see the way that they loved each other, and the way that they trusted each other, and, you know, how they did this and how they did that, and how they would communicate, and how, you know, he always kept her safe, and he was the one that was there to save her when things were going wrong. And I just, oh my God, that part, it's in the beginning of book 2 when he connects the dots and realizes that it's Shannon's dad that's hurting her. Oh, dude. That was a man on a mission. And I was like, you know what? Yeah. As you should be. As you should be. An underrated friendship in these books is Shannon and Gibbsy. I love me a traumatized blonde comic relief. I really do. And let me tell you, Gibbsy just fit right in there. And I can tell that boy has issues. I can tell. And I am so scared to find out what they are. But I just recognize myself so personally in characters like that. That it's just, not me getting emotionally vulnerable. We're gonna move on. I just have a heart for those characters that always cover things up with the humor and the jokes and the funny and the false confidence and this, that, and the other. I have a character currently that I'm writing, and I am prepping for my next book to be about him. If you know, you know. And I think that once I get to Gibbsy's book, I feel like that's gonna help. I feel like the next one, I feel like Joey and Aoife's books are gonna help too because of Joey's struggle with drugs. And so that will be something more that I've already been planning on tying in with that character. And so these books really did help a lot in the terms of showing me how I can expand how my characters are. And that even though it may be like a stereotypical type of character, right? Like, okay, the comic relief is actually the most traumatized out of everybody. Like, we've seen that before, you know? But I think that the way that it was done in this one, was just so well-rounded, you know? Sometimes it feels like it's kind of forced. Like, okay, you just gave that character that poor backstory just because you can. Like, their only triggers and response to that trauma is just to tell funny jokes. Like, no, like, I want you to be serious about these things. And we saw, it was in book 2. Yeah. Oh my gosh, why did I forget about that scene? When they went camping and he fell in the water. That was like so interesting to me because you don't really see those comic relief characters. You don't see their trauma touched on like at all. And so for that to come around and for that to be shown, I understand that that was prep for his book, but I found that really interesting, the way that Chloe Walsh kind of tiptoed into the world of what he's going through. That was really cool. So on to book 2 a little bit. I thought the way that they handled Johnny's main concerns being if Shannon was essayed at all. I thought the way that that was approached was so insanely realistic and just like I held that so dear to me because he tried to tiptoe around it and like her being too innocent to understand what he was asking at first broke my heart. I was in the middle of the gym on a treadmill reading this on my Kindle, bawling my eyes out like at 11 a.m. I was not emotionally prepared for that at all. And I think it was written in a very vulnerable and honest way. And it said, the way that Johnny and Shannon both reacted really said a lot, I feel like, about their characters. So I thought that was really interesting. Now, Shannon's older brother. I don't know where I sit with him. I really don't. At the very beginning, I could have taken him out. And you know what? I would have. Because he was driving me crazy. I was like, what are you doing? You just popped in? You just showed up? You have all this money, you have this fantastic life, and you just didn't even think about doing jack squat about it? And you just listened to your mother and enable her? Really? Like, hello? No. No, we're not doing that. He made me so mad. And I understand that he, like, came around eventually, whatever. Yeah, after everybody freaking died. Not everybody, but you know what I mean. Anyway. Whatever. Okay, so throughout the second book, I really, really liked the way that you could very obviously see how Shannon was sort of blossoming once she was given this safe space and this refuge where she could grow and she could become the woman that she was like always supposed to be. Especially once Johnny left for rugby. I think, you know, seeing them handle their relationship being apart, and then also like the fact that her life didn't stop because he was gone. It was a really conscious way to write it, and I thought that was really, really beautiful. Because, you know, he left and, yeah, she was better, but it was still, you know, it was a process, and he came back and she had just grown into this whole, like, this young woman who was happy, who was healthy, who was safe. Like, it was such a meaningful thing to be able to see her grow and just become more comfortable with herself and her body and who she was and what she was going to do with her life and all of these things. And I just thought that was a really, really cool way to do it. The Kavanaughs adopting, I don't know if they officially adopted, I think it was just fostering, but like fostering Shannon's little brothers, that was so precious. That was so precious. I loved that so much because I was really, really scared that they were all going to get separated. And then they didn't. And they got to all live together, and they were just happy. And they had parents that actually cared. So many aspects of their story. Just, it meant so much, and it was so meaningful. And yeah, it was like so many pages. But I wanted more. Like, I want more. Like, I have all of these pages. I've read all of this information, and it's still not enough. And here we are, and now I have to wait however long, if it ever even happens. I don't even know what's going on. I don't even know what's happening. I'm just stuck in whatever stage this is, I guess. My stages of grief, supposedly. I am thinking honestly about, I think I'm reading Fourth Wing right now. I've been told that I'm just going to want to blaze through the whole series. Maybe we'll do that. We'll see how that goes. I don't know. Either way, if I end up hating it, like a couple of people have said I'm probably going to, I'm just going to go ahead and jump straight into Saving and Redeeming 6 to see how that goes. But we'll see. Closing thoughts, 5 stars. Both of them. Obviously. These are my new comfort characters. I love them. They are always going to hold such a special place for me. And I'm really excited to see what happens in the rest of the books. I think that's going to be cool. And I'm excited. Thank you for hanging out with me tonight. If you want, like, subscribe, stick around, because I'm kind of funny sometimes. I try to post videos every other Saturday. Trying to get a little more consistent with that, but we'll see. A little bit of speaking on terms of New Year and what we're really going to be doing with this channel. It's going to be a big year, I feel like, for all of us Marvel girls and guys, I guess, if you want to be here. And so I'm hoping to find a way to kind of break my brand, so to speak, off into being able to talk about that with you guys and just having a good discussion. And I think that'll be fun. So yeah, all right. Well, love you. Thank you. And I'll see you next time. Bye.